Everybody, welcome to another edition of our CTC cast reunions, and I am here so excited with the cast of Little Shop of Horrors. This was a really super successful show, a smash hit of, what was it, 2018? 2018, all the way back 300 years ago in the year 2018. And I'm here with the cast. So welcome, cast of Little Shop of Horrors and crew of Little Shop of Horrors. And I'll have you each introduce yourself one by one and the characters that you played or what your role was in the show. Well, how about Sophie start?
So I played Audrey, the first Audrey. Yeah, and I'll hand it off to the second Audrey.
My name is Jason. I played Audrey 2. And I don't know, I guess I'll pass it off to my puppet.
Hi, I am Rebecca Magnotta. I also played Audrey 2, but in the other way. I operated and made the puppets for the show. And I am going to pass it off to our Seymour, obviously.
Spoilers. Well, I played Seymour. How's it going, everyone? I'm going to pass it off to my trio, whoever wants to start first. How about Max?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I'm Max. I played Crystal. And I'll pass it off to either one of the other trio. I can't pick.
You're the one I saw on screen.
I love you. Fight.
Okay, fine. I'll go. Yeah, my name's Mo. Were we called Doo-Wop Girls?
Sure.
Is that what it's called?
Unofficially.
Anyway, we opened the show and it was a smash time. I'm gonna pass it off to Elijah.
Hi, I'm Elijah. I played Chiffon.
Oh my God, did we have names?
Yeah.
We did.
I'm gonna look mine up. You keep going.
Played Ronette.
Oh yeah, Ronette. I have a YouTube
been a
playlist.
While. It's
now
been
that
a while.
I think about it, I have a YouTube playlist literally called Ronette, where all the songs that I had to sing were on that. Okay, sorry. Okay,
I'm gonna pass it off to Maggie Papa.
Hey, thanks, Elijah. I'm Maggie Papa, and I played a variety of roles as a member of the ensemble. I'm going to pass it off to Jay Walker.
Hey, Jay Walker, and I was also in a variety of roles as part of the ensemble. And I just see on our little email thread here that Jeremy wishes he could be here, but something came up last minute. So,
Our Mushnick.
No, not Jeffrey, but Jeffrey too.
Jeffrey also. Yeah, we're missing a few characters, unfortunately, here.
Ooh.
And we also have Caitlyn Sweeney. Who are you?
I stage manage Little Shop.
God bless you.
Yes.
And yes, we have other cast members who couldn't make it. It's always with cast reunions with anything, I kind of give a speech sometimes when I direct a show where it's like, if it's like the last show, it's like, this might be the last time all of us are in the same room together ever again. Mm-hmm. Because it's like so rare to get like everybody back together again. But we have a great group here, so I'm super excited to talk to you about the show. Does anybody want to take a stab at summarizing what Little Shop of Horrors is about?
Little Shop is about a shop that is little, and it has some horrors in it. And
Let me pull up the Wikipedia page.
No, from memory.
No, the one sentence summary. A young man finds his confidence and loses his blood through the same man-eating plant.
Yes.
That did it. That's
good. Very good, Rebecca.
Yeah.
I mean, there's more to that, but you know.
That's great. I appreciate that because it doesn't give really a lot of spoilers. Because you don't know, there might be someone watching this who's never watched Little Shop and they might get inspired to watch it.
We're just really jazzed about us as people, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
There's all
I
different
had
people out there in
actually-
Facebook land.
Yeah.
I had never seen or heard Little Shop of Horrors before being in the show. And apparently it's this whole following. Like a
Oh, yeah.
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 thing.
Definitely got a cult following.
I was going to ask about that because I know I saw it in the audience a few times, and you always bump into people who are like, "This is my favorite show. I'm going to come and watch this as many times as possible." And I was going to ask that of you, if any of you are like that you love Little Shop and you had that kind of like grown up with it. I know some people of a certain age maybe like grew up with it.
I actually did it in high school.
What was
I
that?
say I love Little Shop of Horrors. Like I seen it when I was a kid, actually.
Yeah.
And like I grew up on it, and I just loved. Like I grew up loving doo-wop and all that type of. So to have a show, especially at that time, it was contemporary for that time, but it had just I don't know. It just had a real great feel to it. The music is just great. The music is great, and I've always I did the show one other time, but it wasn't done right, and like I lost my voice like the weekend before the show, and so like I just felt like like this is my chance to do the show right. And I always like I loved this cast. I loved this show because the show like it just became magic. And I was surprised that some of the actors didn't know the show. And so for me, knowing the show, I loved watching everybody like get to where like I knew the show. So like I already knew where it was. To see everybody discover it and the magic that became because of that, that was like so rewarding for me. And I was just sitting up top and I could see it all happen. And like I used to tear up almost every night.
This was my second time doing Little Shop, my first time doing it for real, because I was in a drag show version of Little Shop as the same character. And I mean, I grew up on Little Shop and I knew all about Little Shop, but being in it and like seeing it are such different experiences, at least personally, just like really like trying to live the life of this like ain't taking nothing from no one person versus like seeing the rawness like as an audience member versus being in it. And then like now every single time I'm asked to sing something with someone, it's always like, can you do Suddenly Seymour? And I'm like, that isn't even my song. Okay.
Yeah, this was actually my second time doing the show as well. I did it back my junior year of high school and I played Mushnik. When we did auditions for that version, I actually auditioned for the plan because my vocal range is a bass baritone and I could not sing Seymour or tenor, so I had absolutely no interest in it. And same thing when I auditioned for the CTC version. I'm like, I'm going to go for the plant. That's my vocal range. So during the audition, when Chris and Jean asked, it's like, hey, do you mind singing Grow for me? I'm like, okay. And then they ended up offering me the part after the callback. I'm like, are you sure? and then we actually finally did it, and it's still to this day one of my best theater experiences I think I've ever had, and still one of my favorite characters I think I've ever gotten to play.
Nice.
Just want to do a shout out and remembrance for Jean.
Yes.
Such an amazing woman and so instrumental in the show being as amazing as it was. And
yeah,
it's really hard to be here gathering together and reminiscing without her here. So just
but everything she had into every little bit of detail of what we were singing, saying, and what it all really meant as a whole. And I definitely musically, the show was where it got because of her.
Yeah.
And if you have like, I was gonna save it till later, but since we're talking about Jean now, like any specific memories of working on a song with her and having her help you kind of get the song to where it needed to be, or just any anecdotes about?
What I remember about Jean is I remember going to her house, waiting for my turn, and playing with the parrot. That's what I remember. That's what I remember about Jean's house. It was just a lovely like place to be, a very warm place to be, waiting my turn. And I loved the music, so I couldn't wait for my turn, but I could hear other people. that was, I love that part of it.
Sorry, go Rebecca.
No, it wasn't even a song, but I do remember opening weekend. I had been working so hard, and it was like the closing day of opening weekend. We were, I think, packing up for the day, or maybe setting up for the day. And I remember Jean sort of said right in front of Chris, she was like, Rebecca, I bet you must be really looking forward to like a nice stretch of 3 or 4 days off. And it was just like, she had recognized how hard I'd worked and was like, give this girl credit, give her some time off. You know, and she did that for me when I didn't, want to speak up for myself and say, hey, I'm working hard, I need a break. And I just remember she did sort of that for everyone. She knew what you needed before you did and made sure you got it, no matter how she could.
Absolutely. For anyone that's watching, we're talking about Jean Maxine Carpenter, who has just recently passed away, and she was the music director for this show. And the show it's a musical, so it's very musically driven, but it's so much of the tone of the show comes from the music. And she I think she was instrumental in like one of the reasons we did Little Shop, because she was really enthusiastic about it. And with any musical, especially for a theater like contemporary, that we do musicals, but we don't do them all the time. So we don't have the infrastructure constantly in place. We kind of have to assemble the musical team for each, and it starts with the music director. And if you don't have a music director that understands the music, that can totally take ownership from a directorial standpoint of that part of the show, then you really can't really mount a show with success. And so Jean was like such a huge part of the creative force of this show. But what were you going to say, Caitlin?
I was just going to say that I remember, obviously, Jean and I were in close contact throughout the entire process to schedule music rehearsals and everything of that sort. And I remember a lot of the times our houses were pretty close to each other, so I'd just go sit in on the music rehearsals all the time. And it was so incredible as a person who doesn't sing, just to like sit in that room and like have everybody work together and like literally watch everyone and Jean like lead this charge to get through this music and like kind of help build up everyone's confidence a little bit, because the show is like musically challenging in a lot of different ways. So it was just really magical to like be in that space with her and watch her do that.
Sorry. This show for me, in terms of my growth as an actor, is probably one of the biggest kind of influences at the time. I was going through a lot as an actor in college, of just like doubt, imposter syndrome, especially vocally. When I was offered the role, jokingly, I said earlier, like, are you sure you want to do that? But in the back of my mind, I was also like, am I sure I want to do this? Because it's not my range. Seymour is a tenor. I'm barely that. As a baritone, maybe a bit of a baritone. He was a stretch. And through almost all of the process, Jean was right there having my back of like, yeah, I could do this. My voice does work for this role. It can work for this role, even if I can't hit every single note that they do on the cast recording. I asked her later on, way after the show had already done, like, what was it exactly that made you choose like me out of everyone else that came out? And it was, the response she gave me was your softness and your kind of your energy, the innocence that you brought, while it not being like that geeky kind of stereotype portrayal that you often see. It was a little bit of wonderment and creativity while also enthusiastic. And it was vocally challenging for me, but also mentally, of getting to the end of the process. And it's still one of my favorite shows that I've ever done, largely because of the entire cast, but vocally definitely because of Jean and what she allowed me to play with and experience and really learn about myself.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for saying that. That encapsulates like what it was like to work with Jean, I think. Definitely.
I think
Go ahead, Elijah.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think everyone can agree that Jean allowed everyone to be unapologetically themselves in any project, in any capacity. She allowed you to take those liberties, those freedoms to explore and be creative and be passionate and make mistakes and have off days and not be perfect because nobody's perfect, and really allow yourself to own who you are and what you bring to the table.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's part of what makes a show like this so successful, because this particular show, it's got a lot of songs and you all are really fantastic singers, but it's really like the heart of the characters that kind of comes through, and that's what makes it a story that you really want to follow, and makes it more than like a kind of a surface level silly quirky musical. And so I think that you all had such unique ways of being on stage and energies about you, and that she saw that and Chris saw that and brought you all together. I think that's totally what helped to make this show like super successful. But in terms of that, like the tone of the show is different. I think Jason was kind of alluding to this a little bit. When it came out in the 80s, it was different. It's straddling that line in between comedy and horror and camp and gritty, like poverty porn, you know what I mean? Like the whole Skid Row, like what was it like to work on a show like that that's so like tonally like right in the end? There's abuse in it. We don't have Brad here who played the dentist. I forgot his name. But like that's a whole other storyline. It's like spousal abuse or in there. And what was it like to tackle a show that had such a fine line to walk with the tone?
I think my favorite thing about, oh, I'm sorry, Rebecca.
Nope, you go.
I think like my favorite thing about this production in particular was that like I had seen Little Shop like before, and I'd known it for a little while, and like it was fun and it was campy and it was comedy, and that was all well and good, and it's a good show like that. But then like the things that we did with it to make it different and to make it honest and to like make it more intimate and fit for like the black box space that we were doing it in, like made the show a million times better to me, and I'd never thought about it before. So it was just really cool to like actually like, instead of like playing off all of the like abuse lines like as jokes, instead of like playing off things that were like actually bad like as comedy, we took them and made it more real. And I think it just like it's a show that a lot of people don't think that like you can do that with, and like we showed that we can. And I thought that was so interesting. It made the project like so much more rewarding.
I was gonna say, like specifically referring to like the abuse elements of the show, and Sophie could probably speak to this too, but me, Sophie, Brad, who played the dentist, and Chris, who directed, we went and had a meeting at the Domestic Violence Resource Center of South County. Like we sat down with some members there and like had a long conversation about our concerns with the show and our concerns with the material and how we should approach it. So from the beginning of the process, we just tried to be really thoughtful about how we portrayed it, and also intentional in how we told that story, because it is a real thing that people experience all the time and it's horrible, and you want to do something like that justice in a way.
I think that one of the things that that was wonderful about having Chris direct, and having Chris direct such a wide variety of shows in the theater, is that he doesn't, the gravitas of Little Shop of Horrors is no different from the gravitas of Hamlet, you know, is all of the situations are real. It's the same, humans killing other humans, humans being cruel to other humans. isn't any less real in a comedy or a musical than it is in something we think of as classical. And it makes the moments of the monsters and getting to see this sort of the abusers and monsters getting what's coming to them at some point, and then the heroes then turning into monsters in sort of a very like a very classical, real, honest way, in sort of what everyone's talking about. We're not trying to shy away from these things that we're doing, whether it's the elements of reality of being in an abusive relationship, or the sort of fantasy elements of ending that abusive relationship with the man-eating plant. I mean, it's metaphorical in a way, but it's rich and it's real to our production, and we don't try to shy away from those moments just to make a joke out of it. It's all real, and we're telling the story, and we have to take the narrative and the story seriously,
I think it's way more rewarding that way, because I don't know, you care. I mean, specifically for Sophie, for Audrey 1, you care so much more about her, I think, as more than just a joke, as like real human who's in pain. And one of the most beautiful and chilling moments that I would always peek in through the lobby to see was Suddenly Seymour. I'm gonna like tear up just thinking about it. It's like what is that line, Sophie, where you're just like standing like center stage and you're so confident and he's looking at you from below. What was like, I don't know. Suddenly
I'm trying to just say all the lyrics on it.
It showed me on hand, or something like that. And like you like totally like embrace yourself, and you I don't know. I just thought that was so much more rewarding, having the reality of everything pay off.
Yeah, I feel like we gave her that space to have agency of some kind, like even though she is in this awful relationship, she, once it's over, I mean, she still has a lot that she's processing and dealing with, but you root for her when she is in that better place, and so it kind of makes her death have a bit more impact, I think. And also that Suddenly Seymour moment is more, has a different impact. It's not as funny and comical. It's more beautiful and heartwarming, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as someone who didn't know the show before being in it, and as someone who works in the sexual violence field, it didn't even occur to me that this show kind of historically laughs at those moments, because that just does not compute for me. And so I've seen some other performances of Little Shop after I've been in it, and then I like went and watched the movie after being it and things like that. And I'm just so glad that my introduction to this show was the CTC version, who took these situations seriously, because they are real lived lives of people. And it also, back to what Max said, like the show didn't lose anything. If anything, it gained in that realness, and you still get to enjoy all the quirky parts, all the campy parts, all the amazing music, and still honor the experiences that each person in the show is going through.
Because there is still surprise and humor in other things that are not related to the awful situations that you don't want to make fun of.
Mm.
And it's stronger when there is that juxtaposition too. I mean, when you really do have a show that you consider a comedy and really take these moments to eliminate the comedy altogether and focus on just the reality and the poignancy of the situation, it's like, oof.
Yeah.
I think that's like what, like at the CTC, like we try to approach shows in a certain way, and that's kind of a driver of it. Like all shows, all people that direct at CTC kind of have that in mind, that you're telling a full story, and these characters are like full human beings, and so you have to approach that with a sense of humanity. And so when you're making jokes about stuff that doesn't feel right, then you're not honoring the humanity of the show. And so I think that's always like super important. I think that's something that kind of came out when we talked with the Sweeney Todd cast, and with all the shows that are most successful shows. Like they approach the show with a sense of humanity, and it doesn't mean it has to be a downer. The show is really fun to watch, but having that, it mirrors like the experience of life more, because life is like serious and also funny and also quirky. So Elijah, I think you might have to pop out shortly. So sorry that you're gonna have to leave, but thank you so much for joining us. Anything last words you want to say? You're on mute, girl.
Muted.
Take yourself off
You're
mute, girl.
muted.
You.
Muted.
Oh, I've been doing this for over a year. You would think I'd learn by now. No, I just hope that the world reunites us in another whimsical way again, in a musical way, and a way of love that we all have and share for each other. And I'm so happy to see all of your faces here and listen to everyone, because I've definitely missed reminiscing about something that was such a significant moment in my life.
Great to have you. Thank you for being here, Elijah.
Bye.
Hi. Just a couple quick more questions, and then I'll let you all go. It is getting late. But I wonder, like, what was the rehearsal process like? In some of you were familiar with the musical, some of you had done it before, some of you hadn't. Like, were there certain things that were harder than you thought they would be to stage? Were there some things that were easier? Like, what was the hardest thing?
I have to hop in real quick, because that, when Tammy just said, was there something that was harder? Flashback to when Chris was trying to get us all to stomp at the same time. Like, it was impossible.
During the Skid Row.
During Skid Row.
Yep.
That literally
Oh my
was
God.
an uncovered memory.
That took a good 30 minutes, I want to say.
And
Longer.
then it never got solved. It was just like, y'all, if you are not sure you're gonna stop on time, just fake stop.
Just don't do it. Yeah.
Don't do it. Oh God.
Oh,
It was
goodness.
tough early on, I thought, because like I was already, like I said, I was already kind of mentally already there. So it was hard to like, everything wasn't caught up. And so I was getting frustrated. I was, for a while there, like Mo didn't even come until like the last,
like 3 weeks. Or something.
Right.
Crazy.
So we had two girls. We didn't even, we
Elijah
couldn't.
forever, and then we were like, we need a third. Like, it was
And when
crazy.
she finally came, the show just, from that point on, once she caught up, the show just took off. Oh, it just exploded from that point on, because we had the third girl. It was just like the show was complete, and she had a purple thing on. It was just like it made everything come together. And I remember that early on it was like tough. I was frustrated, but then as a kid, everything caught up and it was beautiful, and it was like I just could just sit back and tear up every night.
I can imagine.
I definitely teared up every night before I crawled under the stage, like in the opening number. Like every night with like the they're just like, all right, it's coming, here it comes. I love it so much. I like even now, just like thinking about those noise, it's an emotion that I've never felt for anything else before.
Yeah.
Literally having Max and Elijah on either side of me every night, it never got old. There has been no other show one, this is the longest run of any show I've ever done, but also even in shows where I've done like 3 performances and it's over, like every single night I was hella pumped to start that song. Like it just got me, it got me there every night.
It's great. It's such a good, it's so hollow to try to listen to like the movie soundtrack now, because it's like, you don't do the song right, you stupid. But TGC cast recording.
Go ahead.
Well, you're going to talk, but I was going to say, I remember how on point Caitlyn was all the time. Also, probably the best stage manager I've ever encountered.
Oh, thank you.
Oh yeah.
And you were like a teenager at the time too, I think.
Yeah,
And
I
was
turned
just
19 during the run.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're an old soul.
I always end up having my birthday during like, I had my like Sweet 16 during Sweeney. So it's just like,
oh my goodness,
crazy. But I was just gonna say my favorite part about any rehearsal process, and especially with this one, because I didn't know anything about the show going into it, was kind of going along the journey of figuring out how to use the theater space, because it's so unique in that it's so small, and like you have to, if you're not connecting with the audience, like it's kind of, what are you doing? Because it's all right there. So I just remember there's a lot of really cool moments of discovery. I'm thinking like the trio's opening number, like they're all talking to the audience and bringing them into the show, and like that's how you get introduced to the show. And then also I remember we rehearsed Brad's, the dentist's, I don't remember the dentist's names either, but he had a solo song where he was in the audience and kind of, was getting into audience members' faces. And we had an audience plant for that. So it was just like figuring all of those aspects out of the show, especially with such kind of a long show, was just my favorite part, to be able to like move to different parts of the audience and like be able to watch the show come together.
Yeah, that's definitely one.
Go ahead, Sophie.
Oh, that's similar to what Caitlyn said. That's one of the exciting challenges about that space, is that if you don't interact with the audience, it kind of, it feels like disconnected. And so it was always fun to have to every night sing to different people. And it always, made it different every time.
There were some moments of like genuine connection that I personally had during the show. I think during the show, there was during Mushnik and Son, when Jeffrey was having like his own little inner monologue and talking. I remember there was one night I looked over at this woman, my stage left, because it's a weird, stage left and stage right is kind of weird to explain in this space. I looked over down at one woman, and he's singing his own thing, and I look at her, I'm just like, I don't know what to freaking do. And she genuinely looks up at me and just goes, and actually shrugs at me. I'm like, did not expect that. Love you.
One thing I was going to ask about the audience is because this was perhaps our biggest selling show ever at the CTC, or one of them, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, like, mad props to you all for that. But as someone who's performed in, half empty audience, like theaters, and like pretty much empty theaters, what was it like to perform for like such a packed house every night, and like what did you learn from those audiences?
Oh, it was real good, Terry. Felt real tasty. We sold that again, did we? Awesome.
I think there was like one time, because it was snowing, we didn't sell as much, and it was a weird night, and I was like, oh, we're spoiled.
Because it snowed, right? Or something like that. There was a
but we
snow
still
show.
had like half of the house
big.
filled.
Yeah.
It was still like half the house filled, and we're like, wow.
Yeah.
There was still plenty of people to look at.
There's a magical energy that you sometimes get in a show when you're in a show, right? And every single person in the cast can feel it when you like are when you're at the end of the show and you're like, that was the night, that was the magic night, we did it, you're all high-fiving. And it has a lot to do with how much energy the audience gives you.
Yeah.
And if you have a packed house of an energetic audience every single night, guess what? Every night gets to be magic, and it was.
But by the
That's
end of that run, though, we didn't even need an audience by the end of that run. Like, we were having fun doing it. Everybody
But
was
we
in their
took a full
role.
house anyway.
Yes.
This is just a rehearsal, but come on.
Yeah.
My favorite things during the shows, because usually I'm backstage helping run the show. So usually during the intermission, I end up on stage, like moving around props and take down a wall for Little Shop. But every single night, which is how I was like, oh, this is like really going well, like this is really successful, is like the audience is just sitting in their chairs just talking to each other, like leaning back over the backs of seats and having conversations with people they might not necessarily know. Like the chatter is like super loud, and that's always how I'm like, yep, like it's dialed in, like we have the audience and they're with us, and that's always how I'm like, oh yeah, like it's going well.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're backstage, you love to hear that buzz.
Yeah.
Like, oh, they're happy. Oh, they're into it. Yeah, like I can feel their energy all the way backstage. Like that's
Which
pretty
is,
magic.
that's so funny, because that brings back like my intermission was trying to get into this place of like preparation for Suddenly Seymour, because there's a very short scene where Audrey is in really like bad headspace because the dentist is gone, and she just doesn't feel like she deserves any, like she blames herself, she doesn't deserve any joy. But yeah, so it's just like having to kind of block out all of the positive good stuff that's been going on, or like you feel it out there, and to like try to get into that headspace. Yeah. Oh, miss it.
Yeah, right.
As sad as like, oh, I miss making myself sad.
Oh,
Yeah, you don't
Because
have
Life of an
to.
actor.
redemption is so great.
Nobody has to cry
Yeah.
anymore.
I think this like the only show that I like didn't have backstage time like during the show for.
Oh my God.
Like, the interesting way that the trio was staged. How we were just like, even if we weren't in a scene, we were in the theater sitting like near the audience, and like I don't think I've ever like I don't think I've ever been like, okay, I'm just gonna be on for like an hour and then stop for 10 minutes and then on for another like hour-ish. I don't know how long the acts were, but like that was such an interesting experience for me, because like I think honestly like that just like helped like my character, and like just like I don't know, it made me love the show more because I got to spend so much more time with the character, and I didn't have to like go backstage and like be myself and then come back out. Like it was just so interesting and like so like fun, and like the moments of exploration that we got to do, and how different they were every night, because every scene was like always different every night, was so cool. I just loved it.
The only
The
time
thing-
I got to spend backstage during the show was that one short transition song where me and Caitlyn Sweeney like stripped me down and threw this big head helmet on and strapped some gloves, and then I jumped in
And
a
then-
garbage can.
There you are for the rest of the show.
Do you remember? That was like horrific. This show was so hard.
Well, so going off of that, talk about being on for the entire show. So when we got to Act 2 and it was like the big plant,
Oh my
so
God.
Rebecca would be behind that thing, still making facial expressions on exactly what was happening. So
I didn't know that I was going to be in the show until like the day before the show, right? My last thing was like, all I have to do today was build the big wall to hide me in the second act so that nobody can see me operating the puppet. And then after that night's rehearsal, Chris was like, yeah, Rebecca, your face is in the show. You
And it
know?
was so much
There-
better
there was-
for it.
Yeah, there was one. I didn't know that you did that until I think it was what was it, supper time, and Mushnik was about to be fed, and I'm leading him towards you, and I see, and on your face, right behind the plant, I see you go.
Love it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was
So good.
it didn't start as something intentional.
Became something, but it
never
became
started
something,
as-
and it was something great.
Right? It was just me like, gotta make the puppet make the face that I make.
Like, let's talk about that a little bit, because like you've got Jason who is doing the voice, and you've got the way it was staged was Jason was visible the whole time as like, but he looked like a human, but he was the voice of the plant. And you got Rebecca, yes, and you got Rebecca on the stage as the plant in the real world of the shop, operating this like puppetry contraption. Like, how did you? So that's one challenge that theaters have with producing Little Shop, is that you've got to either like buy a big giant plant, or you've got to have like some way of like figuring out like how to make this plant. But we at the CTC have Rebecca Magnotta, and so how did you, like, number one, how did you come up with it? Number two, like, was it always your, did you always know that you were going to be the one that was operating it? And then the third one is, it was fascinating watching you operate the plant, because you're hearing Jason's voice and your movements were so right on to everything that he was saying. Like, I wonder if you like had worked together at all, or like how did you capture that?
Nope. She's just
we didn't.
incredible.
So to answer your questions, there were I feel like a lot of them.
I asked you
They
like
were
10 questions.
complicated.
That's like
So-
interviewing 101. Don't ask 10 questions in a row.
Yeah.
How did you come up with the
all right,
plant
let me start it
idea?
off like this. So, right, I like puppets. I like building stuff. I like making stuff. Probably around this time, probably between 2017, 2018, I was like on a puppet kick, just kind of personally on my own, like just like, ooh, puppets are fun and exciting. And in my head, I was like, I would love to someday get to puppet a whole show. Maybe about 2 weeks later, Chris was like, hey, yo, talk to Jason Quinn. He's down to doing Little Shop. We're doing it this fall. You're making the puppets. And I was like, this is what I've always wanted.
Coincidence.
You know? And then, you know, it was a horrifying sort of process of realizing how I was like, oh, this isn't what I wanted. It was hard. It was hard to make those puppets, because really I did do it on sort of like getting the inkling of like, I like puppets, and not really doing as much research as I would have liked before. I was like, I got a foam cutter and some foam. Let's make this happen. Which is very much how I tackled it. And it wasn't necessarily, I started working on the puppets before we cast the show, started working on the show, because it was a while. I probably started working on this in August, you know, and it wasn't that it was ever said that I would operate the puppets, but I kind of built in this extra sort of assurance of like, I don't know, man, a lot of the puppets are made with like sharp chicken wire and real complicated to operate. I'm the only one who knows how to do it. They're built around my fingers. I can't. not that.
I built it for me, so cast me.
I built it for me. You can't not cast me. It's not like I come with the puppet. I'm the meat of the puppet, you
I'm
know?
the meat of the puppet.
Which was great, which was fulfilling. I love puppetry. I love doing it. I learned a lot, you know, from this process, and it was hard, you know, because the puppets went from very different designs. Like, oh my God, this one in the back, right?
Oh,
sort of
baby
like
too.
this sort of process that goes like this, and there's like fishing lines that goes underneath that moves the little leaves that you can kind of see. And then the bigger one is built on sort of the same principle, you know, but like it's a hand puppet. But like I said, all of this is sort of like sharp chicken wire that I just stuck my arm up into. I was like, I'm all calloused and rough. I can do it. And I just did it now. I was like, that probably wasn't even smart. And then number 3, like I said, the Caitlyn Sweeney strapped me into, it was like big, like 3-foot long leaves on my hands, so I couldn't touch anything, right? I was sitting in a trash can. I had this big helmet on my head that for whatever reason, I was like, here's how I'm gonna operate the mouth. It'll be with my neck. So every time I flail my neck back and forth, it'll open the mouth of the puppet.
I was so
Behind
worried
my
about
face,
you.
I'll just
Oh
throw
my
a sheet
God.
of fabric over that whole middle piece. It's fine. I won't really be able to see, but who needs to see? You know? And then by the time we got to the 4th one, it's like, it's fine. I didn't even have to worry about it. It's just a big PVC pipe frame that I have to like manually just rip up and down for an hour.
Oh my God.
This was, and in terms of whether or not Jason and I synced up, right? Which is the real question in hand, is we acted the shit out of that. And it's just like I have found as a very bad singer, when you need to hit a really high note, you don't need to hit the high note. You just need to point and make the face and like act your way through the song. And we spent so much time in rehearsals trying to get it right. And really, if you kind of go back and look at the footage of the 4th puppet, it's like that thing, you can't, its mouth flaps like a wave. There's no way that you could possibly sync it up properly. It's like, nah, it's the face and Jason's face and the puppet face together acting.
It went
It was
great.
easy for me, obviously, but I mean, I just didn't. I guess I didn't. I should have put more thought into it. I think I should have been more like in sync with her, because I didn't realize like how much weight was on her. You know, because
No, you did too.
Yeah, I could have
You
like
did.
said
You
the
knew
same
exactly
line
what
every
you were
time.
doing. Because it was all jazzy and doo-wop, and you knew how to like slide the beats and the rhythms to match what I was doing, probably. I don't really know. I couldn't see.
I think so. It worked out. It worked out well. I thought you both did a great job. It looked like it was so choreographed.
That's why I think that's why the show was successful with CTC, is because, and why I was enthusiastic when he was going to do it, because I knew like of all the small theaters do it all the time, but I knew all those little bells and whistles and all those little trap doors and puppetry. I knew Chris could pull all that off. I knew that he had the people and he had the thought process to get that right. So the fact that like, bodies were sliding through the mouth and all that stuff, and it just made it so much more real than you see it. Like, you don't see that in local theater. You really don't.
So I was insisted on being covered in blood by the end of the show.
Yes.
Do we want
Didn't
to talk
one
about the
show
blood
you
pack the
got-
first night?
Nope.
I was gonna say, didn't we like shower an audience member with
Yes,
blood?
we did.
If you come see live theater, you're consenting to like something happening. Maybe you don't know.
The first
Mhm.
three,
yeah.
3 rows of the splash
You
zone.
don't know. Like,
You're in the splash zone.
I
yeah.
want to do a show with a designated blood splash zone someday. I think that would be
Let's
gorgeous.
hope. Like, I talked about this with the Sweeney Toddcast, and like for anyone that's watching that doesn't know have theater, any show with blood is like a thing. Like the blood is like a thing.
Oh,
And it
yeah.
takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of work to figure out how to make it, and to make it not ruin everything, and to make it not dangerous, and to make it not kill your cast members or like shower the audience. It's a whole thing. So thankfully you guys handled the blood.
As the accidental residential CTC blood person,
Yep.
there's been a lot of trials and errors, and opening night was certainly one of them, but it was super fun to like try and figure out how we could make that happen. And it ended up, I would just hand it to Sophie as she's halfway down the puppet.
Yeah.
So it was just fun to like figure out the mechanics of how everything would get to where it needed to be.
Yeah.
So I think we're getting close to wrapping up, but any last memories or favorite things, routines that you did, or like moments in the show that you all look forward to? Like Maggie talked about watching Suddenly Seymour. Was there anything that you all look forward to performing or looked forward to watching other people perform during the show?
So I just posted in the chat the opening like monologue of the show that all the different ensemble members took turns every night. So every night was a different person, and every night it was delivered just a little bit differently. And I just really loved that part. It came before the music started and things like that. And it's just another example of kind of the collective nature of our show. And I just felt like this cast was so strong. And as someone who came in, 3 weeks to opening, it just felt like finding a family and then just going on tour, and it was really great. But anyway, this opening monologue I really loved. And yeah, so that's what I wanted to bring up and remember, and just say thank you to everyone here and not here who was involved. And this show and the CTC will forever be in my heart. And yeah, I just hope that we all continue making stuff together and following each other.
My favorite moment of the show or the process was when, like I said before, was when Mo finally got into the mix, and then when the three girls finally caught on and were together, and that opening monologue starts, but then the song starts, and when they finally had that all together, and that's when that just right from the boom, the audience is in, and they just brought it, and when they finally got together and became one, it was just so beautiful.
The moment that sorry, one of my favorite moments from I guess both the process but also the show was a genuine reaction from our trio the first night we ever did the Kiss for Suddenly Seymour. So a little bit of context for this one. We how Chris, Sophie, and I kind of set this up was we were never going to actually kiss at the end of Suddenly Seymour. Mushnik was going to come in, find us as we were close, and that was it. We were essentially teasing the audience because that's what everyone expects at the end of that song. They get together. So the plan was that was how we were going to open the show with when we finally had an audience was no kiss. I think like the week of previews, Chris had texted Sophie and I saying, it's like, you know what, we're going to go back on this. We're going to do it. And I think it was either you or I had the idea of let's not tell anyone. Let's rehearse this, figure it out, and then let's not tell anyone and do it opening night. So finally, opening night of previews, we do it, and I hear Max squeal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also very much remember some squealing. All three of us audibly reacted.
Like, Crystal was the baby of the trio, so of course she would be like, "Oh my god, love!" Like that was my whole character. Oh my god, my ring light just like freaked out. But yeah, so it's like, yeah, that was my I think that was probably one of my favorite moments too. I don't know, I loved it. I just loved how much joy I got to feel throughout that entire thing. Like I'm not a joyful person, so
just a genuine reaction to this day. I love it.
It was fun to get to have a secret like that too for a scripted show. Like normally you don't get to do that. You don't normally hide something
Yeah.
that big.
We did this for Sweeney Todd, but I just wanted to take a second to, this isn't our entire cast, so I just want to take a second to shout out Jeffrey Ouellette, I can't pronounce his last name,
Ouellette.
Chris Maxwell, Jeremy Chang, Brad Curtin, Chris Simpson, and I think is that everyone? Well, Elijah, who was just here but couldn't stay the whole time. Everyone who was in the pit every single night. They were all just essential members.
Oh, Ari, choreographer.
Ari.
Wit costume designing.
Wit.
Yep.
Those costumes were So good.
So good. Unbelievable. So many sequins.
So good.
Gene, everything.
Gene, everything.
Well, for real, Jay Walker, we haven't heard too much from you. I just wonder if I want to give you a chance to reflect. Like,
Yeah, I've been kind of quiet. I've just taken it all in and hearing everybody's different experiences and kind of reliving my own in there right along with everybody. And I just think it's a beautiful thing that we can all get together and reminisce like this.
Jay, will you read the prologue for us?
Oh,
It's right there. So you
Yes,
It's in the
yes, I
chat.
see it. On the 20th, let me start again. I did not prepare for this. On the 23rd day of the month of September, in an early year of a decade not too long before our own, the human race suddenly encountered a deadly threat to its very existence, and this terrifying enemy surfaced, as such enemies often do, in the seemingly most innocent and unlikely of places.
Ding ding
And
ding
that-
ding 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 ding.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my new ringtone.
oh,
Great job.
that's great.
Perfect.
I think that's a great
Oh.
way to end it. Thank you all so much for joining. Like I said, the folks here in the Zoom, you don't have to leave, but we're gonna stop the recording in the interview here. Thank you all for getting back together, and it's been really great to hear about your process, and I can see why it was such a magical experience. I'm having so fun just sitting here and talking to you like great group of people. So thank you again, and join us for the next cast reunion. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.